Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Here we are at part 3 of chapter 1. And in part 3, we're going to talk about the concept of relationship building. The key term most people use is customer relationship marketing. And so here, looking at the formal definition, the overall process of building and maintaining profitable relationships. Now here, the key goal is, again, making that distinction between a company that's transaction-oriented and those companies that do a good job of it building relationships with companies. And we'll find that, relationships can be built with individuals. We can also co-op and add on other companies to help build relationships with our customers. And so we're going to go through a little bit of that type of stuff. There's a company out there called Salesforce.com, and it's probably the largest online customer relationship management platform in the world. It's a multi-billion-dollar company, and they create frameworks, platforms, software that enable companies to help build deep relationships with their customers, primarily online. Now, this could be a company that has a physical store, but they use the internet as a way to connect and reconnect with their customers. So CRM software, very popular, very cost effective, and the end result is to help them try to figure out how to best collect data so they can then take that data, turn it around to provide an enhanced experience to the customer. Now, when we think about these different types of customer value and satisfaction is a concept that we often see in services more so than we do in products. And I'll tell you why I'm saying that. Generally, we want to deliver some sort of level of value to a customer, but we want to manage our expectations in a way that is positive. So, for example, when you buy an Apple computer, you probably have an expectation of a certain level of quality based on the brand, based on your prior experience with using that product, buying their products previously, information you may receive from others who have also purchased and used Apple products, be it an iPad or an iPhone. And so we build expectations. Now, there is a point where you can build expectations a little bit too high, to the point where it's almost impossible to deliver on it because you can never exceed it. Because many people believe that satisfaction is achieved when you exceed expectations. Now, I know the slide right here says matches buyers' expectations. Depending on the product category, sometimes just meeting expectations might not be good enough. And you see that many times when it comes to service delivery. So, for example, in the hotel context, just meeting expectations oftentimes is not going to do it. There's a concept called customer delight, which essentially is this surprise of exceeding expectations that lead people to believe that they are indeed satisfied with their customer experience. Services, a lot of times you really have to, exceed the bar. Products, I think we look for physical attributes, and when it hits that mark, we're typically satisfied because we're really talking about reliability types of issues. Versus when we think about services, there's so many interactions with people and other customers, and many times we need them to exceed those expectations. So when we look at these, the different types of tools that people can actually use to build customer relationships, the basic relationships that we try to do with customers are usually through some type of loyalty program, frequency buying programs, frequent flyer mileage, and the like. But many companies have also helped by allowing people to build their own communities. So there are lots of Apple communities out there that are really encouraged. There are about 800 registered Apple user groups out there. And people will get online, exchange information about how they use the product, even give people some tips in terms of customer service, technical support. Obviously, the technical support, you don't want to have too many issues that go unaddressed, but a lot of times, rather than going directly to the manufacturer, customers of Apple products will help one another. Looking at some of the online community groups with Harley Davidson and some of the events that they have throughout the year. All those things are there to help consumers build a connection with the brand, but also too, it helps the consumers build a connection with one another. And so when we think about these types, think about the types of companies that you have built relationships with, either through what I call these structural bonds, where they kind of tie you in through frequent flyer mileage or the like, or just maybe you might be part of a group. Maybe you might be part of that, those 800 registered Apple user groups. There's another company out there, Weber. They make grills, and they have their Weber Nation, and they have their grill club where people exchange tips on grilling and recipes and all those things that revolve around the lifestyle of grilling and outdoor activity. So think about the companies that you are engaged with, and you might be involved in some way with a community. So when you think about the community now, think about it in terms of how that helps to build a connection with you and the brand. One other point I want to make here about customers. Not all customers are created equal. I'm pretty sure someone said that at some point. If they haven't, I said it here first. Not all customers are created equal. Now, ask yourself the question, is it ever okay to fire a customer? And my answer in response would probably be yes, it is. Because if you're dealing with customers who are not profitable customers, either they do not buy enough or they do not buy frequently enough, where you are taking your time away, your resources, customer service, your salespeople. If you're taking away from your resources to really build relationships with those folks who are your bread and butter, you are wasting your time. So sometimes it may be best to not spread yourself too thin. So maybe having 500 customers that you can create a deep, long-lasting relationship with is a lot better than having 2,000 customers where some of them are just superficial. Many customers today are empowered mainly through technology. Again, getting at the community-based stuff that people are doing, but also too, some of these community groups are not really sanctioned by the brands. These are customers who, and sometimes it can be bad. It could be bad where people create these online communities to vent about bad experiences with consumers. I guess the important point here is that you need to manage these relationships that these customers have in terms of how they create relationships amongst themselves. Keep your ear out to what's going on, what's being said, and how it might shape your brand and then their ultimate connection or relationship with you. Companies also too can use outside partners as well as what goes on internal to the organization. I want to talk a few minutes about how many organizations use external relationships to help manage customer relationships. You see it a lot with any company that has a product or service that needs to be delivered. Companies like FedEx, UPS, US Postal Systems oftentimes are very much integrated into the service delivery process. And so they get involved in integrating it through ordering, on up through shipping, and eventually tracking, and then whatever customer service issues have to be taken care of down the road. So it's really about using their expertise, their software, their technology to help enhance the experience of your consumer. Next, in terms of relationship building, we can, again, we talked about external relationship partners, but also internal relationship partners. Most selling, especially in business to business, is going to be more cross-functional team selling. So, for example, you may have a company where they have a sales force, they have a product development portion team member, they may have some marketing people there, they may have legal, depending on the level of expertise that's needed from a legal standpoint. They have a cross-functional team where they try to bring together all the resources that are needed to make the customer feel comfortable in doing business with an organization. You see it, like I said, many times when we talk about having business to business relationships. IBM is very good at that, where they build lots of infrastructures for companies that they in turn can use for manufacturing processes, for, again, going back to CRM, for CRM relationship building. And so for them, when they do their cross-selling, they come and cross-sell to you with technical people, marketing people, and depending again on the sensitivity of your particular needs, maybe even a legal person might be on that team to help sell the product and the relationship or experience with the vendor. Again, kind of summing this up here in terms of these connections. I mean, these are connections that you're going to have with everybody throughout the supply chain. Think about Walmart and all the up and down relationships that they have within their supply chain. They go all the way up to the people who are actually manufacturing it. That could be Procter & Gamble, and they're manufacturing Pampers diapers. And so think about all the raw materials that go into the relationship for Procter & Gamble to physically produce a bunch of products. They have unlimited number of SKUs in Walmart and Target and all the other stores. And so for them, it's really about managing their relationships with the people who supply the raw materials, managing relationships with the channel partners who might be Walmart and Target, and then also too keeping an eye out in terms of what's going on with their competitors. And sometimes you get some of the best information by keeping an eye on what's going on in the channel. So for example, think about how many times you've seen and walked down the aisles and looked at people who are actually there putting stuff on the shelves who do not happen to work for Walmart. They may represent the brand itself. And so when they represent the brand itself, a lot of times they get some really good information by actually being in the store, in the channel, to see how we as consumers interact with their brand, their category, or specifically, maybe the broader category. So it's really about trying to figure out how do you understand the entire supply chain that will ultimately lead you to providing the best service and best relationship opportunity for your customer. Because the ultimate goal for you and your customer is to create a lifetime customer. And so there's a concept called customer lifetime value, which essentially looks at the average lifespan of someone or an organization and how much they would actually purchase over a period of time. That's why marketers are so intrigued and really want to go after young folks who are college-age students. One, they're very well educated and will have a higher income over the course of maybe 50, 60 years. But also, two, they may not have cemented their brand loyalties at such an early age. And so they're looking at this lifetime value of you as a customer. They much rather spend their time trying to sell a product to you at the age of 22 than to try to get somebody who's 52 years of age or 62 or 72 years of age to change their mind. Even if they can convince them to change their brand to the brand that they're selling, how many more cars are they going to buy in their lifetime? Because their lifespan's not going to be much longer. Another concept that's really interesting, many companies are looking at, again, big data, measuring data generally. Companies trying to figure out what portion of the wallet are people actually controlling in terms of organizations. So not only do you want people to buy your brand at the exclusion of others, the question is how much of their money are they spending with you and your particular brand. So if you have a household where you have 6 people in the household, not only are they buying beverages, but you want to know how many of those beverages are Coca-Cola brand beverages. How many of those brands, or what percentage of those sales are going to be Pepsi branded products. So if you're Coca-Cola and people are buying Coke products, you really do not want to see them prefer the Aquafina, which is a Pepsi brand, when it comes to water. So you want to have as much share of the household dollar as you possibly can. And you see that a lot in many different categories. When you think about all the stuff that people own in their homes, lawnmowers, low leaf blowers, people like Home Depot want to know what share of the garage do they have in terms of that kind of stuff. Obviously, most people can have 2 cars in the garage, some maybe 3. They want to know what percentage, or if you have 1/2, 2/3, whatever it might be. If you have a 4-car family, how many of those are going to be Toyota brands, or how many of those are going to be American brands versus Japanese brands? So the concept of understanding share of customer, collecting the data and then analyzing it and putting it into a format where it's not only understandable, but good enough where you can make a decision based on that. Another concept, we're going to wrap this up in a few minutes here, customer equity. Customer equity basically is the total combined customer lifetime value of all the company's customers. And the goal is to see if we can have as many loyal customers as we possibly can. Now, you can group your customers, you can segment your customers based on how long they've been customers. So that might be a good exercise for some companies to do. So for example, you may have a segment of customers who may have been, for example, Cadillac owners for 10 years, or some may have been Ford owners for 20 years, or you may have first-time buyers. And your strategy for those 3 different types of segments for those brands may be different depending on how you think you need to proceed to make them loyal. And I think I just kind of made this point, but I'll make it again to kind of underscore it. The key point here is that not every customer should be treated in the same way. Even if they're within the same segment, you might find it is reasonable and important enough for you to sub-segment within your market. And you treat them like assets, and you nurture them, and you grow them, and you find ways to make them more connected to you, be it through community, maybe it might be some sort of loyalty program that you decide to create or get involved with, all with the goal of having them connected to you. And so the strategy that you're going to use for CRM, which is a short acronym, it will depend on the segment. So the first thing is to figure out a segmentation strategy, and then you can figure out how do you best connect and keep those people in those different segments. Now, the final point that I want to make really kind of addresses this issue in terms of some of the things that are going on and the changes in the economic environment and then technology. Back to 2008, I think, when the market crashed and we were having all sorts of troubles in a macroeconomic way and individuals were having their homes foreclosed on and so on, frugality is here to stay. And so companies know that, and everybody, no matter what, is still looking to save a buck. And so the goal is to figure out how can you deliver a great amount of benefit relative to your competitors at a cheaper price. That's always going to be the winner. And then figuring out how can you keep them loyal. And it's not an easy solution. Sometimes lowest price will win, sometimes it may not. It depends on the relationship, it depends on all the other services that go on with it. So if you happen to be Walmart, some people choose not to go to Walmart because they don't like the physical environment. Yes, they'll save money, but that's not their primary motivator. Again, it goes back to segmentation. In the digital age here, online marketing is obviously fast growing. These what we call click and mortar companies have evolved. Companies like Best Buy are really scrambling right now to figure out how do they prevent people like me and you who come in with our iPhones and we shop them. We use them as a showroom. And then you go and buy on Amazon because you can find it on Amazon cheaper because Amazon doesn't have the huge, tremendous overhead. There was an article recently in Business Week that kind of pointed to the fact that Staples has really kind of revamped their strategy. And so they're kind of moving away from this big box retailer to this small box retailer. And so what they're trying to do now is to try to come up with a 21st century retail solution, because the old-fashioned biggest store carrying the most items on a physical shelf is not the right strategy to compete with the likes of Amazon. And lastly, a couple more points here. I know I said lastly a couple of times. Not-for-profit marketing is growing. especially in this age where people in organizations who are non-for-profit are finding that funding is becoming more and more scarce, so they have to find more innovative and creative ways to raise money. The rapid globalization, especially if you offer a product or service that we as consumers can go online and order it anywhere around the world and pretty much get it within 48 hours, it is so hyper competitive. And so you have to continue to innovate and figure out what's the best way to deliver the best value to your customer in a way that provides a cost benefit, a positive cost benefit in terms of benefits and the cost that they have to incur in buying it in a way that's different from their competitors. And so low cost doesn't always win, but by and large, if you're low cost and you have benefits that are similar or greater than your competitors, you're going to win by and large. And so the goal is to try to take those transactions and turn them into relationships. Now, this final slide, I encourage you to take a look at this. This level of detail I will not ask on an exam. I'm not going to ask you to reproduce this particular slide. But what I would encourage you to do is to get an overall understanding in terms of what's going on in this particular slide. And essentially, what it's doing is it's trying to suggest to you or to us that where we want to go is to eventually get to some sort of value orientation, the red boxes, where we are building long-lasting relationships. And the question will be, how do you do that? And the answer, starting from the left column, is we have to be a little bit more market-oriented and figure out what are the needs that are unmet, and how can we create a product that is differentiated from what's out there in the marketplace, find a way to deliver it in a cost-effective way, and then build relationships with people so they'll continue to come back. Anyway,
That was easy.
This is the end of chapter 1. And I'm going to step it up and record the lectures for the other chapters. And I encourage you to watch and listen to this. If you have any other questions, just ask me in class or just hit me up through email or office hours. All right, thanks. So I'll see you on the other side.